My amazing, phenomenal guest today is Raphaël Barontini, born in France in 1984 and currently living and working in Saint-Denis, France. Has developed a singular and bold pictorial work, moving from a classical practice on canvas to large-scale textile and volume pieces that can be performative. He questions the portrait and the symbolism of representations in an aesthetic of collage that combines photography, silkscreen prints, and digital prints. His works take the form of flags, banners, hangings, tapestries, and even ceremonial costumes such as capes. His large scenographies and performances allow us to apprehend the different faces of his production. Barontini's work has been exhibited in institutions around the world, including the SCAD Museum of Art in Savannah, MacVal in Vitry-sur-Seine, France, MoCo in Montpellier, France, Museum of the African Diaspora in San Francisco, New Art Exchange Museum in Nottingham, USA, and that's just to name a few. He has also participated in the international biennials of Bamako, Mali, Casablanca, Morocco, Lima, Peru, and Thessaloniki, Greece. In 2020, he was chosen by LVMH Métier d'Art to complete a residency in Singapore. Raphael, thank you so much for joining us today. You're getting lots of love in the chats and the comments. How are you doing this wee hour of the morning for you?
It's okay. No, it's still 1 a.m. So I'm still with you. I mean, I'm very glad to see you guys. So thank you for having me, and I'm suppose that we will have a very nice conversation together.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it. Look at all the wonderful people we have with us. I'm getting distracted with the chats, but keep them going. Yeah. So somehow I didn't do the math for timing, and so yeah, we really appreciate you joining us. It's 1 a.m. where you are, and because of that, Raphael was like, "Do you mind if I join you from my apartment and not my studio because it's quite late?" So. Yeah, we're so glad to have you with us. And so, yeah, I want to jump into our conversation. I'm going to, in a little bit, pull up some images, but I'd like to know, what sparked your interest in art, and when did you decide to become a professional artist?
I mean, when I was a kid, I didn't really know that I would love to be a visual artist. But in my family, arts globally was very present. So my father was working in the music industry, so he was organizing concerts, and I was in the middle of a musician and in the backstage of live concerts during my whole childhood. And when I was a young guy at high school, I was playing music, and I was practicing drums and percussion in a carnival band and in the suburb of Paris. So yeah, art, we always been around in my family, but my turn to the visual arts were when I was a student in high school. And some art teachers gave me some advices to maybe try to enter in an art school. So yeah, I tried some school, and I had the opportunity to study at the École des Beaux-Arts in Paris. So it's the main School of Arts in France, just in front of the Louvre Museum. So it's a very historical place. It was a school created by Napoleon. And I think that maybe this experience really gave me maybe the envy to become an artist, to maybe make this passion a career. So meet a lot of other young students, young artists, meeting nice professor, and have the opportunity also to to study in New York for a year during my scholarship was very important. And then, I don't know, I started, and the beginning were not really easy, because you know that artistic career can be tough at the beginning. But you know, I had a part-time job. I was a salesman, and I was continuing my practice, my studio practice, and yeah, I became professional after 5 years after being graduated. So yeah.
That's incredible. What kind of what kind of music were you playing before?
I was in a carnival band, so it was really like I mean, Caribbean music. And during 2 years, I was in a band, and we were like parading in the streets. So that's fun, because it's also, you will understand a part of my work because of this experience. Because I'm sure that when I entered in school in Paris at the Beaux-Arts, I stopped to be in that band and to practice music. And maybe this frustration gave me the idea to start to do painting in another way. And that's maybe why I created after that banners and flags. So yeah, it's a part of my story.
Oh my gosh, that is incredible to know that, you know, you've had that connection all along. And you know, from looking from the outside, it almost felt like that was part of the progression of your visual art practice. But to know that that's actually where you started from is really incredible to know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a piece when you were at the School of Beaux-Arts? Was there a piece that you remember making where you were like, okay, I've made the right decision?
Yeah, maybe yeah, I did a first series during the first years of my scholarship, and it was a series of court portraits. And it was maybe the first series where I kind of I was kind of like sure that it was the right direction for me. And I was already interested in the question of portraiture. So I started a series of portraits where I was choosing portraits in historical paintings at Le Louvre, just in front of my studio. And I was picking these really French paintings representing people of power from European courts. And I was like switching a little bit the meaning, because I was doing shootings, photographic shootings with models in Saint-Denis, and mainly Black. And I was like rewriting a kind of history of France in an imaginary way. But that was the first series where I really think that I had a strong position, maybe. And I sent you this portrait of Marie Antoinette.
Yes,
And
yes. Let me pull that one up,
yeah.
actually. So just give me a second to get in here and wait, where is it? What is happening?
Yeah, maybe it's the panorama. You have to choose the.
There we go.
Yep. So yeah, this painting, Marie Antoinette, was from this series, and it was really, I think, the beginning of my practice. And you see that there is already screen printing in some of the portrait, the face, the hand. This idea of mixing photography and painting. You have a lot of abstract aspects in the painting. You have a work with inks in the background, and it's really an important piece for me because it's from where I started. And after that, of course, after a lot of years of production, I did different other series.
Okay, that is incredible. I had no idea that this was one of the initial ones. I am getting my annotation.
Yeah.
The captions are popping up for mine. Something's up with my my PowerPoint today. But it's really incredible to see that, you know, one of these first pieces that you made has really carried you, you know, from 2007 all the way until now. It just really embodies the work that you're still doing in so many different ways. And then we're going to pop into, you know, this next one where, you know, really like looking back at your history and thinking about the role that your family history plays in the work that you make, and also the choices of the material. Can you please talk about, you know, the personal family histories that are involved in your work?
Yeah. I think so. I was saying that just previously that I think a lot of things in the early stage of my work was unconscious, and I really believe that when I was doing my first paintings, my first works at school, I don't know, I was just like mixing images, doing very organic things, like, and I didn't really think about conceptual ideas beyond that. So it was really like mixing images, mixing iconographies, and I tried after many years to push that in a direction where I could have this same hybridity with textile pieces, with paintings, with tapestries, with a lot of different elements. But maybe what formed the unity of all this is a question about representation, and I think that this maybe political way to question the idea of representation was really important in my work and related to my own experience of mixed-raced young guy who were like evolving in a suburb, in a working class suburb in Paris, a suburb where there is a huge African and Caribbean diaspora still now in Paris, in Saint-Denis. And to be able to be from this suburb and during the summer going to Guadeloupe or Italy sometimes, you know, I was really between different cultures and between different backgrounds. And I think that my work really built, I really built my work in a organic and unconscious way at the early stage. But yeah, for example, the moment where I moved from classical work on canvas to a work of textile, making flags, making banners, or making capes, like the picture we are seeing, was really this idea of also not only representing a people, a character on the canvas, but also have it in a more living form. So the cape, for example, I really started to make capes because I wanted to have a kind of painting in volume in 3D. and who could be activated in performances. So yeah, this idea to make a painting living in the public space or during performances was one of the crucial move maybe in my work.
Mm. And you spoke a little bit about your father and his role as a musician and how that has influenced you. Can you kind of give us, you talk about creolite, and you know, can you talk a little bit more about your family and your family's history? I don't know how deep you want to go into that, but just at least where they're from.
Yeah. So my father's from Italy, but he grew up in France, in the suburbs of Saint-Denis. And my mother is from the Réunion Islands, Guadeloupe, and Brittany. So she's also mixed race. And my experience as a young French guy was to be between Paris and the Caribbean a lot of my time when I was a child. And I've always been very like questioning the relation between France, what we call métropole, so the country France, and its islands in the Caribbean, and why France had islands in another area of the world, you know. So these questions was of course related to the history of slavery, to the colonization of France and other European empires. So yeah, as a young guy and young artist, I was always questioning myself and questioning the history of my family and the history of France by extension. So yeah, so that was maybe the first point. And then when I was in Guadeloupe, for example, the tradition, the musical tradition, the historical issues who are everywhere over there. I mean, even in the carnival, you still have a lot of symbolics related to the period of slavery, for example. Some instruments are really related to that. Some costumes also. Yeah, I was questioning myself and at the same time, you know, I had the other part of my family who come from Europe and from Italy. So it was a way to like, I don't know, like a thread, you know, trying to create an alternative narrative and at the same time questioning the past, questioning history, but at the same time try to reinvent a new narrative. So yeah.
Yeah, I love how your work, you know, not only the performance part, not only breaking away from the confines of a stretched canvas on a wall, you know, and all of these rules that are imposed upon, you know, what makes fine art. But I love how you're also jumping into and examining just history. You know, I'm sure, I know how it is in America. We're taught a very specific history, and oftentimes, you know, as a child who is not of, you know, who does not appear European, right? Who has a family history that is much more diverse and has a different story, but you know that you have a role within this ongoing history that you're working, and you know there's this always like, well, how do I fit? Where does my family and the people that look like me or represent me, where do they fit in this? And I love how you have created this space for them, but in this really fantastical way. This you know, combining all of these materials, and it's futurist, but it's also looking at the past, and it's also very much in the present.
Yeah, and it's also a way what Edouard Glissant with the creolization was trying to express, like to be at the same time totally conscious about the past, but to be also able to, in the present and in the future, to maybe reimagine ourselves and with this tradition also. So it's a continuum, historical continuum, and in terms of identity, in terms of culture, I'm sure that this connection between the past and the present are very important. And yeah, I mean, it's a very big topic, I think, and also in my own experience, I think that I see that sometimes I had to also push a little bit the vision of the French people have to their own history, and sometimes maybe the fact to be in the US and the fact to be to have studied in the US for a year helped me to have this kind of distance. And for example, France still have a lot of work to do about is history of the history of slavery, for example, or the history of colonization, and there is a lot of topics who are still not completely like studied and resolved. But yeah, that's my part of the work, I would say.
This piece that we're looking at right now, one of your most recent one from your residency in Singapore, where you're starting to incorporate leather into your pieces, and then transitioning into a saddle. Can you talk about this piece? I'm just
Yes.
I'm imagining it activated.
Yeah. So that piece was really like installed in a real horse. We did a shooting with it, and we had a horseman who did some pictures with it. But it's so the title is Saint Maurice Saddle, and Saint Maurice is a very interesting character. I did some research in the history of painting, and I was always falling in the image of a black guy, a black knight in the middle of middle-aged scenes in old paintings. And I was like, who is this guy? Because he was the only black guy who was wearing like apparatus, clothes, or armor, and he was really he was a saint. So he was really wearing clothes like a noble or a king, and I learned after that this character that I was seeing in many different paintings was Saint Maurice. And Saint Maurice was Egyptian. He was in the Roman legend at the end of the antiquity. And he became a saint because he refused to kill a village in the south of Germany, and during a religious war. And unfortunately for him and his 300 soldiers from Thebes, from Egypt, he was assassinated by a Roman emperor. So he became a saint because of that. And Saint Maurice was really interested me during that residency. And I did some outfits for horsemen, for example. So so I did some chaps, some pieces who could be wear on a horse, and I also
Mm.
did some saddles. So that saddle, for example, is a portrait of Saint Maurice. It's a real saddle. I had the chance to work with a craftsman from LV, from a Louis Vuitton factory. So they were working on exotic leather, so crocodile leather, and we did all the treatments, the coloring,
Wow.
the everything was made with the craftsman from my sketches. And I did some screen prints on crocodile leather, and we created this saddle, and we did another one, and all of these pieces were shot in a like kind of fashion shooting, but it was not. But I used models and horses, and we did a shooting in Saint-Denis at the Cathedral of Saint-Denis,
Oh my
where
goodness, that's
all the
amazing.
where all the French kings and queens are buried. So a lot of symbols again.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. The location is huge, and just adds so much to the, another layer to the work. I'm also just,
Exactly.
we spoke a little bit about, your interest in these historic figures, um, and I know we're gonna get to it a little bit later, but thinking about figures like Toussaint Louverture or
Mm-hmm.
also Frederick Douglass, these monumental figures that are, and I'm definitely going to connect Frederick Douglass to the Caribbean because of his love of Haiti, and him
Exactly.
going there, which was really a defining moment of his life, and then also his writing. So
Mm-hmm.
you're mashing up these different cultures, these different moments, these different figures.
Yes, exactly. And that piece, for example, was a very that's maybe one of my last paintings. I did it in
Mm.
August for a fair in Paris. And so the title "À la cour du roi Henri Christophe," it's at the court of the king Henri Christophe, and Henri Christophe was a Haitian general during the slave
Mm.
revolution, and he was with Jean-Jacques Dessalines and Toussaint Louverture. And it was after the revolution and after the French were pushed out the island, and the Republic of Haiti was established. And Henri Christophe was in charge of the north of the island. And after a couple years, he created a kind of a kind of monarchy in his area, and it's interesting because he used a lot of codes of the Western courts. For example, he built a castle really in a French style, like a Versailles type of
Mm.
castle in the middle of Haiti, in the country, in the mountain.
So the Citadel, yeah.
Exactly, the citadel, and uh, and uh, and that painting, for example, is an expression of this kind of hybridity in and about this historical moment. And for making this painting, for example, it's really a lot of layers of different paintings, different images, because you have some photographic images who come from ethnological pictures, portraits who were taken in Africa during the colonization, where the Europeans were like taking picture with an exotic glance in front of the population. And it was photographed with a lot of racism behind.
Mm-hmm.
And I love to switch the symbolics of these images and recreate a narrative, a specific narrative in this in the media of painting. So you have a landscape from a Flemish painter mixed with Spanish and Italian court portrait. Even the little guy on the left is from a photographic found taken at the end of the 19th century in the US, so he's African American. You have some African mask from Gabon, so it's Fang mask. So it's really connecting like Africa and Europe, and also the scene is taking place in Haiti. So yeah, I love to create this kind of layers of narratives, yeah, and recreate something different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, even in just doing that, it makes me immediately start thinking about the connection of these places. We often think of them in isolation, but if we're talking about the transatlantic slave trade, it connected Europe, it connected America, it connected the Caribbean, and even further from that. And so it's almost like you're in this one piece, you're bringing that all together to kind of let us know that there is a connection. They're not separate histories. I do want to talk a little bit about your use of screen print. And that wasn't something that I considered until I'm really looking at this piece. And screen print is this process that has seen its role and protest posters and also just being able to be mass produced, right? And it's been viewed as this really democratizing process, right? So it's not like paintings, which are only for the elite. It's also accessible in terms of pricing. You're using it along with painting, along with photographs, along with these other assemblages that techniques that you employ in your work. What role does the screen printing play for you? Is it about fabric? Is it about?
I mean, I think it's a technique who allow me to print images on, as you said, on canvas, on fabric, on plastic, on wood, on whatever material. So this is very interesting for me. But the thing is, I really started to do printing when I was a young student, even before to be in an art school. So I learned to do screen printing when I was in high school in Saint-Denis. And I don't know why, I always had a kind of crush with this technique. And my first artist, my first references were Andy Warhol, of course, and Robert Rauschenberg, and Sigmar Polke also. So painters who were using screen print in their work of painting. And yeah, it's always been very in my DNA of painter. And I think there is a different reason. Maybe, first of all, because I love this idea to mix photograph and painting. So the fact to mix a very pictorial materiality, and also the fact to use something very photographic. I lacked this new link between both. At the same time, I was practicing painting with my brush and like in a realistic way when I was student in painting at school in my art school in Paris. But after 2 years, I felt that it was not really my thing, to only reproduce with brushes what I wanted to express in my paintings. And I think that I was more interested in the symbolics of the images themselves. So that's why I have a huge, a big work of sourcing pictures before to compose my works. You know, I have in my in my desk on my computer, I have many files of many years of pictures. So yeah, I have a kind of a library with a lot of pictures since maybe 15 years.
Wow.
I do also a lot of pictures, a photograph in big museums like the Met or in the Louvre or at the Art Institute of Chicago when I was in Chicago. You know, I do a lot of photograph when I'm in museum because, you know, I can use antique torso from a Roman sculpture to a fang mask from the collection of the Brooklyn Museum, you know. So I love, I think I love to play with all these images, and it's my way, thanks to the 6 screen printing, to recreate something. And the hybridity, and also it's a technique of very hybrid, because, you know, it's again a mix between painting and print. And for that piece, for example, it's a real big exercise of screen print, because I have at least 50 screen to do a piece like that, because
Wow.
it's a big painting. So if you consider only the landscape, for example, you have maybe 15 prints, and then every single character is made with different screens, different prints, different colors of prints. So yeah, it's really a layers and layers and layers of colors of different prints. And I really enjoy this technique. And also it allowed me to do the same on fabric and on leather, and I can you know, I can continue to do this assemblage in my textile pieces.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I'm the more that I look at it, the more that I just absolutely fall in love with this piece. And then, you know, we're also moving on to the Fangam ambassador right here. And so, yeah, if you can just talk about this piece.
Yeah, it's a piece yeah, from last spring. I did it last spring. It was shown at Basel, Art Basel, in Switzerland, and yeah, it's. I would like. I wanted to put these images because it's really the expression of. You know, we were talking about creolization
Yes.
just before, and for me, it's a symbol of what I try to do in my paintings, in my assemblage. So this collage, because it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 elements in the same figure, are taken from very different type of images. So you have a fang mask, you have the yellow part on top of the figure is from an ethnological portrait from West Africa. The black and white face is from a picture I took with a model here in France, just like 1 or 2 years ago. The palm in printed in orange is a palm that I took in picture in my studio also, because I love to take picture of materials, of patterns that I can include in my paintings. The yellow pattern on the bottom of the piece is also something that I took in picture in my studio. And you have the shoulder of a sacred sculpture from Benin, and the costume of a European prince. I think it's Louis XIV. I think when he
With the
was a
collar.
child. So it's yeah. So yeah, and the Fang ambassador. the Fang ambassador was the idea also because I love to like an archaeologist dig in the art, the history of art, and in the history of painting, I saw many portraits of Black people who were dressed really like European nobles, we will say, and because at this time, at this period, in a lot of different European courts, a lot of different African countries or kingdoms had emissary, had an ambassador in this European courts. So yeah, that was the idea of the piece. The Fang ambassador was a kind of imaginary ambassador from Benin, and with all these different type of iconographies.
I love that. I love that you're also kind of inventing these roles for the characters that you're creating, and I'm sure in some way they did exist, you know, to some on some kind of a level. I know we're getting closer into you know, some of your more recent exhibitions. And this one, The Night of the Purple Moon, at Marian Ibrahim Gallery, your gallerist in Chicago.
Yeah.
And just, you know,
Yeah.
for me, it's just these fantastical characters, and then also the kinds of electric colors that you're beginning to use in your work.
Yeah, those three portraits are really related to what we were saying about like Black leaders or Black heroes who were not really represented in the dominant history. And for example, the queen on the left is a representation of Njinga, a very powerful and an important woman from Angola who were fighting for the independence of Angola. In the middle, you have the portrait of Toussaint Louverture. And for this image, for this painting, for example, I took the horse of a Napoleon sculpture who is in Rouen, a town in France. And that was fun because it was before, you know, after the murder of George Floyd and all these demonstration where a lot of sculptures were like pushing down. Just before that, couple months before, I did this piece, and that specific sculpture of Napoleon on a horse was in the middle of a scandal in France because some people wanted to push him out of a square, and of course other people were fighting to keep it. And I wanted to do a portrait of Toussaint Louverture with this sculpture. And for the third painting, it's an imaginary portrait of Duty Bookman, who was a voodoo priest who were also very involved in the rebellion of slaves in Haiti. And yeah, so it's
That's right. That's right. He's the priest that is credited with starting the revolution, right? He had the ceremony the night before.
Exactly.
Okay, great.
The ceremony of Bois Caïman.
And so these figures are all revolutionary figures. They're all fighting against colonization and for independence.
Exactly.
The pieces that, you know, I'm rushing to get to this because this is the stuff that just absolutely excites me about your activations. And I remember seeing this and seeing all the press releases when this was coming, when you were going to have the performances in Savannah, when you had a residency at SCAD, right? That
No,
led to this.
I didn't have a residency, but the SCAD Museum commissioned me a solo exhibition, a solo project on the legacy of Frederick Douglass. And it was for the birthday of his death, I think. But a group show was organized inside the museum, mixing archives and contemporary art pieces. So I think we were something like 15 artists, contemporary artists.
Okay.
Isaac Julian was showing his new film about Frederick Douglass also in the museum. And the museum commissioned me a show outside, in the outside of the museum, in big windows on the facade of the museum. So I created a kind of biographical exhibition on Frederick Douglass, on his maybe the most important moments of his life. And I don't know why, but suddenly at night, I remember I had an idea and I was like, okay, I will have a show on Frederick Douglass, visible 24 hours in the streets, behind windows, for a couple months. And I would love to create something in the public space, because it was a kind of tribute to him. The entire museum was doing exhibition about Frederick Douglass. And so I asked to the curatorial team of the museum if I could organize a performance for Frederick Douglass. And I knew previously that there was some very strong tradition of marching bands in the states, in the South, in all those states, and in Georgia in particular. So when I did the site visit in Savannah before making the show, I saw I saw the St. Patrick Parade in Savannah, and I saw all the different marching bands from Savannah and the area marching, and I selected one who was from a high school. It was a Savannah High School marching band. And I don't know, they were great in music. They were very fun. And I was like, okay, that's the band. And I asked the museum to create something. And we worked for a couple weeks on this performance. And it was a kind of revealing of the windows. So each windows from my show was like surrounded by a textile with the title of the piece or the window. And the drum major of the marching band was revealing after every stop of the parade the windows. So so it was very and of course the music was important too. So we did a selection, a playlist of tracks directly related to the fight for the civil rights movements, and we concluded the performance with tracks from hip hop artists. And it was interesting because at the same time we could link this historical question of the legacy of Frederick Douglass to young people in high school. At the same time, I created some pieces, some garments, some capes, some banners for the bands. And it was interesting to create this connection, and at the same time to make this tribute very living and contemporary. So that was my idea.
Yeah, kind of talking, you mentioned, you know, um, carnival and processions with carnival, incorporating a marching band, then you start to get into, I mean, I know the legacy of marching bands in the United States, and we think about their connections to historically Black universities and colleges, but a lot of the style of the music, the marching, it has a military history, and I don't think that's something that a lot of folks talk about. So it's really interesting for me, moving from procession through carnival, and there is
Yeah,
this very militarized aspect to.
yeah, but also that was not. I mean, I knew that because a part of the work of Frederick Douglass was to include Black folks in the army,
Mhm.
and I think one of his son was a soldier also. So it was conscious also, and uh, and also I think that 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 idea to create a collective moment of performance, to talk about memory, to talk about history, is very important for me because it's it can be a game changer, and now I'm working on upcoming project where this idea is still present, and
Mm.
I really believe that the connection between again the past and the present is important, and
I'm gonna.
the
I'm
carnival.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off.
Yeah,
I'm just noticing the time, and I want to get to folks' questions also. But you started to talk about your new
yeah,
project, so
yeah,
I would be upset if we missed time to talk about that.
yeah. So yeah, that's what I'm trying to do in this upcoming project. So I'm starting to work on a huge project at the National Panthéon in France, in Paris, where um, next October it will be organized historical exhibition on the abolition of slavery and the different movements of resistance in the Caribbean against slavery. And so the Ministry of Culture in France commissioned me a carte blanche, so an
Wow.
exhibition, a solo exhibition inside the church. And I'm gonna work a little bit like at the SCAD Museum on an exhibition who will be very like physical in the space with a lot of textile pieces, very huge textile pieces because the space is huge. And uh, I will do also a performance inside during the opening because, again, I think it's topics. It's very necessary. It's a work that we really have to do in a necessary way because all these topics are still not uh, understood by everyone in France. We still have to connect people with the real history of what
Hmm.
France was by the past. And even if a lot of people are not really knowing the real history of France, we are here to do a reminder. So yeah. So the idea is to do a performance, to work on these issues of memory, of resistance also, and it's very important to do it now because we still see that. I mean, I think it's the midterms today in the
Yes,
US.
it is. It is today.
Yeah, in France we had a far right with Marine Le Pen. In Italy, it's the same
Hmm.
thing. So there is a lot of um, very dangerous ideas, concepts who are still coming back, and it's always important for artists and for citizens to work on these issues.
And now you said they're giving you carte blanche on the space and what you can do in there. That's incredible.
Yeah. So it's at the same time very challenging because the space is really huge. It's very full of things also. So we have a lot of a lot of painting on the walls. We have a lot of sculptures. It's very full of things. It's very full of symbol also because it's the temple of the French Republic. So on this image at the end of the building, you see Marianne and the National Convention. So it's a representation of what is France. And of course, for an artist to deal with all these symbolics, it's challenging because you have to take care of the narrative and also bring your own ideas, you know, and be who you are. So yeah, it's a challenging exhibition, but it's very exciting too.
It is extremely exciting. I can't wait to experience that, and for other folks to also be able to experience that as well. In the last few minutes, I'm going to go through some of the questions that we have. Right today, this conversation is just mind blowing. Yeah, I'm planning my trip to France in October of 2023 for sure for that. Kimberly Carter wants to know if Romare Bearden has been an inspiration for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I discovered Romare Bearden when I was at school at Hunter College in New York. I was lucky to be just in front of a book at the Whitney Museum bookstore who was on sale, and I opened the book and I discovered the work of Romare, and it was like life-changing for me. His way to create narrative with collage, you know, his series about the Black Odyssey, his different series about Harlem, about his childhood. It's, I mean, you see in my work that this way to mix painting, collage, photograph inside pieces is just amazing. And I was totally shocked aesthetically by his work, and also shocked that in France and in Europe it was not really known, you know. Even I can tell you this, but even in my graduation in France, when I spoke about Romare, no one in my jury, in the teachers, were knowing Romare Bearden. So yeah, he was definitely an artist that I was, and I'm still totally fan.
I think it's also just a really interesting thing how Romare Bearden's, you know, he moved away from. I think an interesting thing is during the time that he was working, African American artists really wanted to show the highest, you know, middle class and above achievements to try to basically to try to find equal ground with the rest of America at the time. And you're using this technique, and now you're elevating, and you're putting these figures that you're creating, and sometimes referring to historical picture or images of famous people, and you're elevating them. And this way, you're giving them royalty, you're giving them the roles as ambassadors. So it's an interesting take on that. I think we have another question from Paolia. Thank you. She says, thank you, or they say, thank you so much for sharing your time with us, Raphael. Can you tell us what inspired you to settle in Saint-Denis outside of Paris, and how has this impacted your work?
Yeah, Saint-Denis was very important for me. That's why I still have my studio over there. It's an area at the same time who combine tough economical problems because it's a working class neighborhood. You know, it's really the hardest suburb in Paris, and at the same time, it's very interesting because there is a lot of different diasporas. You have a huge African diaspora, Caribbean diaspora, some people from Asia, and I don't know. I have the feeling that what is Saint-Denis, or what is the north suburb of Paris, is just the symbol of what France is also, and that's not the cliche that you see in the movie about Paris and France, but France is really like a cake of layers of immigrations since decades and decades, and the history of colonization really made this country as a multiracial country. And Saint-Denis is just a cocktail, a sample of this. And at the same time, it's interesting because you have a lot of history. I was speaking about the Cathedral of Saint-Denis, with a huge monument where all the French kings and queens are buried. So that's fun to have a very multiracial city, working class city, and in the middle of the downtown Saint-Denis, you have a cathedral with all the kings and queens of France. They are not in Paris, they are not at Notre Dame, they are in Saint-Denis. So that's fun. And also, just as an artist, I just feel a kind of vitality artistically to be there. You know, sometime I can grab some stuff in an African food store. You know, I can just go to a hair store and grab some product to do a sculpture. You know, it's a kind of playground, you know, so for an artist, I think.
That's amazing to hear, because it seems like where else could you possibly be? That's the only place that makes sense, especially given the context of your work. I love it. I love it. Wow, Raphaël, thank you so much for your time today. This has been an amazing conversation, and you know, I love learning so much about you. Thank you today. I love that. Yeah, I love just hearing about you and the inspirations behind your work, and it's fascinating. I cannot wait to see this this exhibition and how you're going to take over in October. That's going to be incredible. Where can we find out more information?
So it will be official in a couple of weeks, I think, but the project will take place in 1 year. So I think you will be able to find some information at the beginning of the summer. You know, I will spend my entire year on this project. I just will be 2 months in New Orleans for a residency with the French embassy. It's called the Villa Albertine. And I will stay in New Orleans and Louisiana to do some research. But the rest of this year will be focused on this exhibition at the Panthéon. So yeah, it will. But it's October, next October, during Art Basel art fair. So it will be in the middle of the week. So you can book your trip to Paris.
Congratulations on Art Basel in Paris, by the way. Totally sold out booth. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
I expect no less for next year for you. All right, Raphaël, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining us. If you were watching us or this conversation on Facebook, you will be able to watch the entire conversation immediately following this today. I love how the hearts and everything start coming up on Instagram. That's a new thing for me. We will also have the complete recording on MoAD's YouTube channel by the end of the week. Thank you everyone for joining us, and be sure to check out our calendar listings for the upcoming artists that we'll be in conversation with. The next one is Paul Mpagi Sequoia, and on December 6th. Thank you so much, Raphael. I hope you get some sleep
Thank you.
tonight.
Yeah. Now I'm excited. I can go to the studio and work.
Go directly to the studio now that it's 2 a.m. All right, be safe, and thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you in the very near future.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, guys.
Bonne nuit.
Bye-bye. Bonne nuit, merci.